Viborg is a city with more than 1,000 years of history. It is one of the world's best environments for visual exploration, animation and development. And as National Center for Animation, Visualization and Digital Storytelling, we are engaged in whatever comes next. So as societies and futures become scenarios of digital interpretations, we also feel obliged to help both industry, society and education to understand what these new technological developments mean for us as human beings, as educators and as practicing artists and professionals. So we're very proud to have this esteemed panel with us today to explore what it all means, where we're going, and to moderate this talk, I am pleased to introduce you to Chris EBELING, CEO of Virtual Human Studios and associate partner with the Animation Workshop as a future industries advisor and consultant. So without further ado, I would like to give the word to Chris EBELING.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Jakob, for the kind words. Just want to put in there, I am not the CEO, I am a co-founder and creative director. But just to, in case Chris, my CEO, is watching. Hi, Chris. No, I'm really excited about this panel. When Jakob came and asked me to put together a panel with future thinking, my background is I've worked at the University of Technology in Sydney, which was one of the first industry partnerships with Animal Logic, industry-led education with focus on future, not just now, but where are we going. And real time is a big part of that. As you saw in that beautiful video, thanks Boo for putting that together in such short notice. It is not just games, it is not just film, but it is so much more. There are so many silos that are being broken down now in industry where we are using game engines and game technologies to help educate, to help learn, to help collaborate and to create. So enough about me. Without further ado, this amazing panel, I would like to introduce one by one, and please just, I'll call your name and you talk about the wonderful stuff you do. So, Julie Lottering.
Hello, I'm the Director of Education for Unreal Engine at Epic Games. And my background is a mix of coming from a family of artists, always interested in science, to studying neuroaesthetics, so what happens in the brain when you see something beautiful, and then applying that to the science of learning and global education systems, and then transitioning into visual effects with side effects and Houdini, which I still love, and now working for Epic and our products, so everything from Unreal Engine to MetaHuman to Twinmotion, a whole suite of things. And what I do is set the global strategy for how we will learn these new products so we empower creators. And looking at secondary, so what happens in high school, to post-secondary, to training industry. And so it's a really exciting question of what are the future skills and how can we help people make more things?
Zoltan.
Hi there, I'm Zoltan Bato. I'm a digital producer at Digic Pictures. Digic Pictures is a 20 years old CG animation studio based in Hungary. We have about 400 people based in Hungary. And lately I'm focusing on real-time cinematics and also virtual production.
And Volker.
Yeah, good morning. Great pleasure to be here. My name is Volker Helsle. I work for Animationsinstitut at Filmakademie Baden-Württemberg, and Filmakademie is a film school in Ludwigsburg that is located a few kilometers north of Stuttgart in Germany. So Filmakademie is a general film school. You can study any subject related to filmmaking, but also animation, which has been quite successful there from the beginning on, and therefore has been established as an own institution. I think it's important to say that at Filmakademie, students bring in, get a lot of responsibility for their own projects, and the teaching structure as a school or university is very open to people that come in from the industry. So I've seen two teachers in the audience, Phil Hunt and Lilian Klages. So my role is in research and development. I can write code, and I did. I've worked a lot in digital humans and virtual production. But during the last years, I'm more of a manager role and in managing these projects and bringing proposals forward. I also run the technical directing course, a postgraduate course, and I'm part of the FMX program team now. Thanks.
Mr. St. Walker.
Hi, I'm St. John Walker. I'm the Dean of Industry Engagement at Escape Studios. Escape Studios, if you don't know, is a small boutique education establishment in the centre of London. Our hallmark is working with industry. We only teach VFX, animation, games art, very small amount. We're very focused on those subjects. We work a lot with industry, global and local. Students learn to work in teams and they become studio ready. So when they leave, there's not that huge jump that you usually get from working at universities. So very practical place. Where we do what's called 360-degree training, which is where we not only run undergraduate and postgraduate courses in those subjects, but we also train industry themselves, and we also run a whole range of other education things for industry to bring them up to speed if they need it. We are an Unreal authorized training center and a Houdini training center, and we align ourselves very much to what technology is being used in the industry itself. So that's me.
Last but not least, Anas.
Yeah, thanks for being here. It's a pleasure to actually sit on this panel. My role is head of technology at the Lego Group in the department called Lego Game, and so my background is in gaming and that has been my background for all my professional life, and so that is very much the real-time application from the beginning. In Lego Game, we want to bring Lego play to gamers and gamers to Lego Play, so that is definitely the role we want to do. And sort of to look a bit more ahead, and in my role, it's also very much to speak to the silos you're saying, the breaking down, that in Lego games we have always worked with real-time applications, but we can see this being adopted and being more interested in for other departments at Lego. So working with a lot of wonderful colleagues to actually see these silos being broken down and get learnings from each other and actually do more stuff that can flow easily together with using real-time. So that is
amazing. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. And for you all to be here. I have one question to the audience. How many people are familiar with real-time? Could you raise your hand so we get an idea of, okay, so there are a few acronyms and things we should go into depth with when we're explaining. So just in short, real-time, I mean, it boomed really with the likes of, well, on TV, with like the likes of Mandalorian, if we all saw that from Disney, where they used big LED screens and used it for, we call that virtual production, where you use it for film engagement and just really empowers directors and producers and people making these projects. So with that question, real-time engines in film, why, Julie?
This is like one of my favorite questions.
Perfect.
Isn't it amazing that in the last 30 years, there are so many digital content creation tools that have sort of pursued the perfect pixel, right? Like our high fidelity images now are unbelievable. But the problem is that it's all kind of being done in these black boxes, and how directors would work, which is really that integrated experiences of seeing actors with the environment and everything else. There's a whole part of that creative process that is just sort of done in different steps and put together at the last minute, and sometimes there's crunchy decisions that get made rather than the artistic intent of the director. And so, you know, they were called moving pictures, but actually it was stills sort of that were being created. And there's a huge distinction between a software and an engine. So a lot of the software there was for the high fidelity content that we're seeing. But an engine has this added component, right? So it makes it not just visual, but interactive. And it's this powerful combination that now has almost restored a lot of the creative process that film directors and art directors have missed for quite a while. So what you see is in previs, it's bringing together all the different teams. So you might have storyboard artists and modelers and animators coming together to make the creative blueprint. So they're laying everything out and kind of sharing that problem space. And then they can make changes, iteration, play in real time, and see how that will be for the final shot. And then We see a lot of film for in-camera visual effects. ICVFX is the short form there. And it's this kind of combination of having the environment like an infinite stage behind you, with the actors able to see what the environment is, like not just a green screen. And it really is this changing of the creative experience, right? It's almost more embodied. People will react. Like there's a magic to it that's retained. And we've even seen directors get into mocap suits and act out their characters with the environment behind them, like a whole new language being shaped by this real-time application and the creative process.
That's amazing. And Zoltan at Digic Pictures, I mean, you guys have a linear approach in a lot of your work, but you recently are getting more into real time. Can you speak to about the non-linear approach, which Julie is alluding to here as well, and how that affects the process?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, yeah, just until about 2018, we were only doing our cinematics in a pre-rendered fashion. So everything was pretty linear. And our CEO, Alex Robb, realized that, you know, real time might have an optional potential here. And we created Digic Studios, and that's really focusing on how to create cinematics in real time. And now it's very challenging, I have to be honest, because, you know, the company has been founded in 2002. Obviously, we have a pretty solid pipeline and workflow on, you know, creating those hyper-realistic cinematics. And we got used to it. It's, you know, it's a bread and butter. We know how it works. We know the linear, you know, process. Clients know how things are working with us. And now we have a game engine, which, you know, makes the whole process completely different. Rather than going through each and every step linearly, we can actually interact within the process and reiterate in a much faster speed. Like it happened a few times that while we were on a client meeting and the client was explaining what, you know, they wanted to see, I just texted my guys saying like, hey, can you change that, you know, fire to the left? And before the end of the meeting, we could actually show how it looks. Yeah. And our clients were like all over the place, like, wow, this is a game changer. The issue is that as, you know, as we are a big studio with 400 people, obviously changing the pipeline, changing the system is a pain in the back. Yeah. And that's something what all the major studios, I think, trying to solve, because you can't really, you know, draw a line and say like, okay, until now we did it like this, and now from now on we do it completely differently. Yeah. You have to start integrating the old processes with the new ones, and that's not easy. That's something what you really have to take into consideration when changing your way of thinking to real time. And that's actually an opportunity for smaller indie studios, because they don't have to start changing pipelines. They don't have a pipeline. They can immediately, right away, jump into Unreal, for example, into a real-time engine, and create their own quick, fast, really iterative processes and pipelines. So that's for major studios, it's a challenge. For creative individuals who have something to say, who want to show something, it's an amazing opportunity. Yeah,
and I think that challenge also, not just only in the industry, it's also a challenge for education to come along, because we all have to work together, and this is partly, or one of the main focuses. I mean, BAF is education focused as well as industry, and it's important that we talk about these things and how we can also prepare students for the future, and how we also have to change the way of our education process as well. But we'll get more into that later. So, Saint, one quick one for you. So, why use virtual production? Like, does it make sense to use this for any project? I mean, you teach in it.
Virtual production is a range of tools, and I think the important thing at the crux of all this is that traditionally some creative processes have been computationally expensive, where you've had to stop and wait for something to render, or maybe the compositing to be done, or maybe the lighting, or 3D, whatever it is. And real time takes that away, and suddenly, because of that, as Zoltan was saying, you have to it disrupts your whole pipeline. And so you have to work and collaborate in different ways, because suddenly, rather than waiting, you're seeing things right there and then, and you're able to nudge them and change them, etc., etc. And so that breaks down a lot of silos. And I think for education particularly, which has traditionally, worked in, the animators are over there, the games people are over there, and VFX over there, and the filmers, blah, 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 blah. Those teams can all come together and work in new ways. And we're finding a sort of a real hunger by young people who are familiar now with 3D space in a lot of ways through Fortnite and through Roblox and all those games. Suddenly are very aware of the whole nature of 3D, and they come to us already with some 3D skills. So they're already primed to work, and real time enables them to think about the kind of creative work they do in different ways. I think sort of one of the things that we found about real time and virtual production particularly, and this doesn't often get said, is that actually creators enjoy it a lot more, because suddenly they're seeing what they're doing rather than waiting for the next day for something to render, or waiting for somebody else to do something. They can see it there and then. They can work sort of multi-user on processes. So virtual production is really important for education to start teaching, and we're all learning as well. In the UK, we work with a lot of educational institutions and also with a lot of industry, and they're all coming together to design new courses, because this is the future. It's not going to go away. It's going to find its level. It's going to be a new normal in the end. At the moment, there's still a lot of kind of grandiose statements about, and we all talk about the Mandalorian, which is great, but people are doing all sorts of interesting things at the sidelines as well. And only the new students, the students who are around today, will find reasons to use it in ways that we probably can't even think of. So I think that's the exciting thing about education.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with all the upside of virtual production, Volker, can you speak to any downsides?
Downsides of virtual production.
Yeah, is it all upside? Is it all positive, or are there any?
I think there might have been some, I wouldn't say downside, but some, what's the word?
Misconceptions?
No misconception, more like surprises. Because right, I mean, it looks like, oh, it's so easy, you just put an LED wall up, and then the next thing you need is Unreal, you plug that in, and done, right? Here's your virtual production. Okay, the reality is it's actually a complicated technology setup with a lot of pieces where you might introduce delay, wrong colors. You need solid tracking. There's many ways to track stuff, and then your set builders come in and build your set, and all of a sudden, all your mocap cameras are hidden. So there's a lot of pitfalls. But personally, and I didn't say that in the introduction, but I'm a kid of the Commodore 64 generation, which I have to admit, it set the track for my life. This experience with this computer was, it was just, that's what I wanted to do. And that's why I think I became a technology enthusiast. And then going back to virtual production and the potential downside, we've been engaged in this idea of virtual production for about 10 years. We worked very closely with Crytek. They had a big entity that thought of, about the potential. It was called the Cinebox team, some former Film Academy students there as well. But it was really early days, so I am thrilled to see virtual production coming into application now, and probably it's a combination of a hunger of streaming providers requiring high quality content, Corona, pandemic, and technology in general becoming so available and affordable that it makes sense for some production aspects of your movie to use it. But I think it needs to be used wisely, and you need to think about where it makes most sense, where it could also be environmental friendly or save you energy. So my take would be to look at it as an addition in your production, and it's not from now on. It's only going to be virtual production. That's not.
Sane?
Yeah, I could think of one downside, and that's if you're a creative who's used to the traditional film set, and you imagine that you can just step onto an LED set. There's a whole range of other people who should be there with you, who you may not know, and the chain of command is slightly different. So you have the brain bar or the digital village of people who know the screen side of things, pixel pitch and Unreal, etc. And there's lots, as Volker was just sort of saying, that could possibly go wrong because it's a very technical process. So you have to surround yourself with the team, the experts, and they're different from your traditional way. So a downside could be that you're not reliably informed and you don't have the right team with you, the right expertise.
Awesome. Thanks. Shifting gears a bit, Anas, at Lego.
Yeah.
How do you see real-time applications in the Lego group?
Yeah, so very relatable to what Sultan mentioned about that change management and shifting gears. Now I work for a 90-year-old company that has experienced a lot of changes throughout 90 years, right? I've only been part of 8 of them. But, it has something that I have seen in my 8 years, how it has shifted from being these silos you talk to that there are. And we have this very rigid process when we make the models, where a model designer designs a model, then it's sent next in line to the system to make the building instruction, next in line to make the box art and packaging material, next in line is the agency doing 3D turntable, show the play functions and all that. And that is those silos that we want to break up and be more agile, actually have more fun with these, making all these different animations and all the other aspects that involves a Lego model, right? So what we are seeing is, doing some examples, is that we introduced a couple of years ago to do renders of our box art, for instance, instead of photography is one change, right? And then, having the model designers that have that passion for the model, being more involved in this process. And if it is, we are relying on these more real-time applications, that can be much more speedy process of, changing the design a little bit, adjust, and then see how it relates in these, for instance, turntable animations and stuff we want to do. And that, of course, grows much bigger in sort of the scope we can envision, right? That we have all these amazing products and actually see them being relatable and more personalized to the actual players and consumers when they go into our retail shops, they go into our parks, etc. Actually getting that more personalized experience because it all flows through these real-time technologies. And still have the core, the bricks, the Lego model flowing across this system, but can adapt to the shop or player experience.
And that's interoperability you spoke about.
Yes, exactly. Today. Yeah. So making sure, and I know we'll probably say the M word a bit later, but the big Metaverse word, right? Yes. But that is of course that is what we believe in, that interoperability, that we can have these content, these creations that are either we make or the players make, can actually flow across these distant systems and can be sort of coexist and be experienced in many different virtual worlds or digital experiences.
Amazing. And just to address the elephant in the room, there's a reason why I put Lego and Epic far apart.
It's because we're becoming besties.
Yes, they're too close already. No, but and again, addressing the metaverse, of course, there's some exciting news. I mean, you teaming up Lego, Epic. We can't get any alpha out of you, I'm sure. We don't want to, but yeah, it has to be said, we're all excited about that.
So
super excited.
Yes.
And again, also just for the growth that's going to do for real-time artists and locally is amazing. So, Julie, cultivating cross-platform storytelling. What works? What doesn't work? And how could we teach?
This is a tricky topic. But I'm excited about it, and I want to think about this. So when we think about cross-platform, what's been challenging is if you've ever seen sort of a video game become a movie, and you're like, I'm not sure that works for me. Some of that had to do with graphics, and the way that aesthetics carried over. And we don't really have that problem anymore, right? So that's one thing that's like, okay, we did that. But now it's this other part, like what is our imagination to tell stories across platforms? Are we just recreating one thing into another thing, you know, and they live in different environments? So for me, this is an exciting topic because we see brands that they have this big story to tell. And in fact, making a film or a game or using Discord to tell a story or lengthen the way you can experience this brand, well, I think it can deepen your relationship with it. And I'm not coming from like a dystopian version that is just like brands who want our attention, but like, who doesn't love Lego, right? And so if you can have these different experiences and kind of explore it in these different worlds, then I think that there's something there. But from an education perspective, you know, the way that we play when we're young doesn't really see these differences, right? Like you can kind of make stories and then you make another world for it. And so I'm really excited about the imagination that can be applied so that we can have this evergreen space of how a story lives here in one way and the character lives here in another way, and you can kind of encounter them that in a way that feels spontaneous and natural. So that's lots of unanswered questions, but tons of potential.
But to your point before, Saint, as well, enabling young students of today to be ready for tomorrow, I mean, they will be the creators and they will be the ones who will, you know, solve some of these problems and ideate and innovate. And I think that's a really important point when educating, is to give them room to be, well, equipped to do that, but then also push them so they can be the young innovators of the futures and the creators. Real time isn't just in games, as we saw on the video before as well, and we've spoken about. It's different silos breaking down. It's not just games and films. What other industries, Volker, have you seen use it, and can you speak to these?
Yeah, I think it's quite obvious that VR is finding a solid place in training and serious applications. I think that's where it can be used very meaningful. But we ourselves have some anecdotes. So in one of our past projects, we created a toolset for virtual production. So it's open source and you can use it with any engines. It works with Unity, Unreal, Blender. You can also import USD files. So basically allows you to interact with virtual elements of a scene, also to augment real scenes, sets that we build. And then we went into a regional research project where our task was to bridge our knowledge in, let's call it XR, to other industries like the more traditional industries. And what we did was we just teamed up with an architect who was about to build a house for a wine community. And you know, it was very simple for us to just get this model and build an AR visualization on a tablet, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is really cool!" And how complicated was this? And we showed them and said, like, you know, it's really not rocket science. We did the same thing again about urban planning. So there's a big highway that separates two cities, and the plan is to build a big bridge that you can put houses on top of it, so not just a bridge to walk over. And we visualized it, and again, people were really like, "Oh my God!" So I think it shows that, you know, entertainment, and it's really a challenge that we're facing regionally. So people say like, yeah, you're from film school, so you do film, right? And it's like, yeah, but you know, basically, it's technology that we do, and you can use that technology for a lot of purposes over, and then we get back to the people that we educate. You know, I think it's been excellent job opportunities, not just in animation or games. Some of my students go into automotive, you know, afterwards and get paid twice as much as in entertainment. But I think that's not the main reason. But basically, I think we're in good shape for a lot of things that probably will happen.
Yeah, Saint, you.
Yeah, I think one of the exciting things, concepts which has come up recently, is the idea of digital twins. So not only sort of, you know, we're all used to probably seeing architectural visualization where back in the sort of 90s where a camera would just swoop because that's what they could do through a sort of low polygon apartment. But digital twins have means you have the possibility not only of building a replica of something that you're going to build in the physical world, whether it's a district or a city or a building, but also to apply data, dynamic data to that to see how the traffic flow would happen, or what would happen where the pinch points were in corridors and things, by taking real data, real online data, real time data, and applying it. And I think that's a really exciting area which students from traditional film video are now moving into those areas because they're taking their skills into that area. So you're telling a story, if you like, by a replica of something which will eventually be built, and that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Or something you already built, for
Yeah.
instance,
Yes,
a
that's
Lego
right,
model,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
take it in and tell a story further with it and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. Sultan?
Yeah, one of my favorite use cases is definitely treating mental illnesses and phobias, for example. VR is an amazing tool for basically, giving a safe space for mental people with mental illnesses, or for example with fear of spider, arachnophobia, because that really gives them an opportunity to get used to something what they're afraid of.
Yeah.
And the good thing with virtual reality is that you can actually track the result. You can see where the user is, seeing what he's seeing, where he's putting his eyeballs, and get some data out of that, and then use that data for further enhancement of the technology, of the treatment. So it's an amazing opportunity for.
Is the Spider-Verse going to start to pair it up?
Well,
with that?
I can't tell, but yeah, maybe.
Awesome. And so teaching real time, I mean, we've touched on it, we've kind of made it obvious, but just to kind of put the hammer on the head, why is it important for young students of today? Saint, anyone?
Well, why? Because it is the contemporary thing that's happening at the moment. I think there is a rule though, kind of metaverses, I guess, but definitely the core skills are real time. And I have to sort of say, the entry to market is incredibly amazing because Unreal is free, right? And the incredible resources that you have out there, the University of YouTube, and so the time is now to get involved with those things, and you don't have to necessarily go to university, although you could think about us, but you don't necessarily have to go to university. You can pick up this stuff, you can start at home. So that's what's exciting. I think a lot of young people kind of think the metaverse is just going to be owned by the corporates, and there's no room in, and that's partly Klein's Ready Player One and all that stuff. But I think sort of anybody can create their own metaverse product, and it's a bit like the early days of the internet. It needs to be open to allow these things to flourish. And of course, people will want walled gardens. The big corporations will want walled gardens. But Epic are part of the open metaverse forum. So there's a group of people coming together who are trying to find a way in which you can, just like you can move from one city to another, in your country, and you don't have to drive to a new city and get out your car, get a new car, change your clothes for that city, which is kind of how the metaverse might be if you don't watch out with avatars, etc. That's where we want to be, that open metaverse, and I think that's the exciting thing. And entry to market is very easy for young people these days.
And it's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, to get all these big corporations to come together and figure out what the standardization, what file types, and we could do a whole different talk about how we use AI for this. I'm sure Volker would have many.
And then just to add that, with this current internet not built for kids, that's also why we are thinking very much into, so this new thing, can we at least think of the children and actually make it safe and responsible and all that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the big challenge as well, right?
There's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
But it starts by having the conversations and by, sharing knowledge and then moving the needle slowly and, bringing as many people up to speed as possible. So because you're all future builders of the metaverse and future educators of the space. Julie, one last one, and then I think we want to try to get some questions if we can before we wrap up.
Yeah, I'm really, I guess, so excited that we can all apply our imaginations to this and that it's early days. And so how often in your life do you get to define something and you get to be part of a generation that is asking these questions, testing things, playing? So I'm really excited to see anything that you guys are making, and would love to connect on LinkedIn and see what that's about.
Awesome. And just one last thing, just to do this whole panel justice. Where do we go next? Like where, if anybody wants to go and pick up real time, Unreal, Unity, whatever it may be, where should they go, Saint, Volker, anyone?
I guess the Unreal website is a great way to start.
Yeah.
There's so many amazing videos and opportunities you can find there. So I would say that's one of the best way to start your journey, because it's not just helping you to learn Unreal, but it's also helping you to learn the concept of 3D, creativity. And yeah, I wanted to add that I think it's important to learn the engine and the 3D world and etc. But we are seeing more and more tools which are actually helping everyone to create. So the number one thing what is important for the Metaverse is creativity, because we are doing this together. We are creating the Metaverse. No one knows how it will look, but if you have an idea, that's the time to, put your thought into this.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'd say if you're into filmmaking, look at the Unreal Virtual Production Guide, which is amazing about how to move to this new way of working. And it's Epic Games funded, downloadable, free. Really interesting how different people from, the kind of movies you might have heard of in Hollywood have adapted to virtual production.
Awesome. Volker?
Yeah, I would just advise, not on a specific software, but I think we're heading towards a massive reconfiguration of any creation pipeline we knew from today or maybe the last years. That might come from the demand of the metaverse or virtual production or new AI tools or a mixture of all of that. So my advice would be to be very open to new ideas, not stick to anything that is labeled, yeah, that's the way we did it. The last years, that might change. And just try to, even if you feel a bit humble with technology, try to find your way into it. It will influence you as a creator at one point or the other, very likely. And it's never too late to learn something.
Exactly. Lifelong learning.
Lifelong
Always
absolutely,
be learning.
Yeah.
Technology moves fast, as we've seen. You only have to look backwards to see how far we've come.
Last thing I just quickly wanted to mention is that actually virtual production holds a lot of opportunity for sustainability. We've done an investigation of that, comparing offline to real time. That was before the energy crisis, about a year ago. And there is more coming up. You will be participating in an evaluation if you get my card, and then I'll send you that evaluation. I think there's a lot of opportunities to save energy and to come up with workflows that can save not just a few kilowatt hours, like we're talking about massive amounts of energy. So.
Cool. Jakob? You have to shout.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so we have a few questions from the online audience.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
are you ready to take them? And then
We
I
can
think we
take-
should also have some time
Exactly.
for a bit of Q&A with
We
the
would
room
love
here.
to hear.
All right, so Nana out there, she asks if it's possible to give sort of a very brief sum up of the importance for students when talking real time, if that's possible. And another question is from Nils, who says that as architects are very aware of how the built environment affects its users and can condition mood and behavior, is this prevalent in real-time worlds as well? What responsibilities and pitfalls do you see?
Well,
Or
the
just-
beauty of being the moderator is I can just hand those questions off to this esteemed panel. So,
Yeah, I think the first question was about the relevance for the students,
Yeah.
which we just answered. Or I mean, that's
Yeah.
the
I think with the second one about built environments, and I think the ability to visualize an environment before you build it, and you can build in mood rather than just building something and then realizing that it's goddamn awful. Have I interpreted that correctly? But I think that's kind of the amazing thing about ArcViz and where that's going. just the ability to sort of refine every single detail of a place. And even sort of test it out, walk around
Exactly.
it. The whole virtual scouting we haven't talked about.
Or weather systems as well. I mean, like you mentioned before, you can actually build now ArcViz now, and you can put it through different,
Yes.
different climates, right?
Seasons,
like, does the
crowds.
tree shade the shade when the sun goes here? Does it like simple stuff like that? But also smart buildings and data and traffic. And is it wide enough hallway? Is that there's so many things that you can do with these. Yeah.
No, but I think the commonality between games and architecture is that games can also change your state of being, right? Like all of a sudden you are in this immersed environment. So architecture and games share that sense. They may have different expressions of it, but they share that sense. Digital twins for architecture is a very important subject. Like how do we have the real building, but before we get that, as you said, how do we stress test and play with this other thing? And now I imagine that with so much content to be built, like I really hope that architecture embraces doing this in the 3D space, in an interactive, in a game, and something else, because we need builders and we need the stories that they tell too.
Yeah. And to just address the first question, everything we said was of course about that, but the quick summary is there's a skills gap now in the industry today, and we're already talking about things coming. So just imagine how big that skills gap is going to be, and there's going to be a need for more artists, developers, people who have competencies in real-time engines to fill these skills gaps. So.
Yeah, and it's only going to accelerate because, that old cliche of like, we don't know the jobs that will be there, in the job role names that will be there in 5 years' time. Well, that's accelerated now.
Yeah, I think we do, don't we? Or no, if we don't fully, but again, what I love to say is look backwards 10 years and see how far we've come. We've all got AR in our pockets, computers in our pockets, and now we're talking about this new digital metaverse, which is going to be an extended reality. So it's coming, and we just need to prepare ourselves.
Yeah, and I think there's another thing here is the soft skill, because you can be the best technical artist in the world if you're someone who is not the nicest person in the room, then you can find yourself out of a team pretty quickly. So I think that's something what all these universities will have to address.
And these are the soft skills that we have to lead with example as well, as big corporations, coming together, collaborating, having these talks, being open-minded, having the hard questions, and not always agreeing, not always doing what we think is right, but doing what is right. Right? And putting the egos aside, and that's something that has to trickle down to when we teach students. You have to leave your ego at the door. You've got to work together as a team, and especially with the real-time workflows, which are even more collaborative and stacked on top of each other. You have to be even more humble and in sync. Synergy and all these power words. So, are there any more questions from the audience, maybe?
Hi, my name is Mia, and I was kind of wondering, you touched a little bit, but based on data, and as the world is becoming more centered on users protecting the data and everything, I was wondering what you might think a lack of data is going to affect the metaverse.
Well, we really don't collect data, and that makes my job really hard sometimes. Epic's really taken a philosophical stance that that's something that we want to respect. And so I think that we're just going to white knuckle some of that and see what comes. The philosophical stance is more important than the steps we take thereafter.
And I think that speaks to your point about the internet. It's a great place, but it's also being used in the wrong way, collecting data en masse, perhaps. But I think that's also, there's an opportunity there with, again, Web3, to throw another, the next iteration of the internet out there, that there is an opportunity to actually own your own data with the, perhaps the use of blockchain technologies.
In Europe, you are owning your data, and you can claim it at any point. I did multiple times. It works quite well.
Okay.
So GDPR is here. And actually, if my information is correct, I understand that California passed a bill which in large parts is based on the European GDPR to be submitted as a law into the US. And I can tell you there is more things like the GDPR in line. There's the Digital Service Act coming. There's the Artificial Intelligence Act, which are all regulations that help you to, as a user, understand what it is that happens and where your data is and how you can access it. So I think as long as the things that we build are under EU law and fulfill these requirements, you're in a safe haven. But it seems like other countries have acknowledged that there is a need to change maybe some of the business models that we're seeing.
Yeah, and that definitely speaks also to the standards. We talk together and collaborate on these standards, and of course the EU regulation helps in these that actually enforcing it. Our audience, it's kids. It's a different no-go to collect any data, right, without involving the parents. So it's also a lot of our task is also to educate the parent and explain them what it means in a good way, so they just don't click yes to every checkbox and let their kids run right. So
read the terms and conditions, people.
Sure.
Yeah.
We are a couple of minutes over time, but we have time for one final question from the audience. If anybody has anything. No? Good, then I think you can round off.
Well, yeah, I'm going to hand it over to you, but thank you so much. That was
Thank you.
dad joke on Unreal Talk. No, it wasn't epic. No, but that was great. It was an absolute honor and pleasure having you all come to Viborg and share this knowledge, and I hope we can do more of it. And I hope everybody leaves with some passion and inspiration to look into real time more, whether you're an educator, whether you're a student, or whether you are creating in industry. We're very passionate and bullish about it, and we believe in it, and we hope that you will too. So. Yeah.
But thank you for coming, and at the animation workshop and with all our partners, we definitely want to try to fill the skills gap in the best ways possible.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you, dear panel. Thank you, dear audience.
Thank you.
See you out there for the festival.
Yeah. Good job.
Nice.